And we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show. And before I introduce my next guest, before we introduce our guest, there's a lot going on. And it seems like in this country, we're always running for office. It's just politicians never stop running for office, and we just can't get away from it. And this year in particularly, it seems like a lot of people are announcing their candidacy for offices that seem way off, but they're getting into it early, maybe because of a lot of things happening, and they see the potential out there to reach voters. And my next guest has announced, that he will be running and challenging on the Democrat side of the ticket in the 9th Congressional District of Georgia. I have with me Mr. Josh McCall. Mr. McCall, how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you this morning?
I can't complain. Now, before we get started, I want to clear up something with you and our viewers and listeners. I generally on this show, I'll interview any candidate running for office. Our belief here on our show and our policy is that we're to get the most information for voters that we can, and that's what we're to do. But usually I do not bring on a potential candidate until they have qualified and they are officially a candidate. So I'm not breaking the rules, but the one reason I'm bringing you on this morning is the email you sent out that directly, my words, attack, because you questioned Congressman Doug Collins. So I want to talk about that. But first, before we go any further, do you plan to qualify to run on the Democrat ticket in the 9th Congressional District of Georgia?
I do, sir. I plan on it.
And what is that qualifying fee? Is it somewhere around $5,000, or what is that fee?
It is $5,000, and we are over halfway there actually right now.
So you're over halfway there in some fundraising to make sure you qualify, and your intentions is to follow through and be on the ballot.
Yes, sir. That is my intention.
Okay. Yesterday you sent out an email, or maybe day before. Well, I think it was about 11 o'clock at night, wasn't it?
Well, I work full time, so the only time, and I've been doing my whistle stop tour around Northeast Georgia, so the only time I have to work these days is really late at night when I should be asleep.
I understand all too well. But you sent out an email and you got right into it, and you said over 100 days in his confused presidency, Donald J. Trump has made disastrous headlines day after day, just this week after firing FBI director overseeing investigation into Trump's Russia ties. He also admitted the Russian investigation was his motive for firing Comey. The President of the United States has the right to fire the FBI director. Bill Clinton fired William Sessions. What was wrong in your eyes with exactly Donald Trump deciding he wanted to fire James Comey?
Well, one thing I'd like to point out is that I'm not making the charge that Donald Trump did not have the right to fire James Comey. I am making the charge that it was illegal to fire him under the circumstances that he fired him. When Bill Clinton fired Sessions, it was because that FBI director was under investigation himself for using public funds for private purposes. He had pages and pages of evidence against him. In these circumstances, we now know that Mr. Trump personally asked the head of the FBI.
Whoa! You said we now know. Now, isn't that
Yes.
just a source? Because don't take me wrong, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm not trying to.
Sure.
But when we say we now know, and we speak in a definitive way that we now know, isn't that right now just a New York Times source, unnamed source that read a portion of supposedly a memo from former Director FBI Comey? Isn't that, because you said we now know, so is there something I don't know this morning? Has that memo been released that we could read from Comey, or are we still just talking about the FBI's, the New York Times account?
Well, I would challenge that assertion actually, because that is one source. You're correct that the newspaper looked at this memo that James Comey has written, or maybe the friend looked at the memo and shared it with the news. But we also know from Mr. Trump himself that he said it would not be inappropriate for him to ask the FBI director for a friend. And then his son, after they took the president's phone away, presumably a couple of days ago, his own son also tweeted out that he didn't think there would be anything wrong with it himself. So there's a lot of smoke to this, and that's three different sources that lead us to strongly believe that Mr. Trump asked Mr. Comey for his loyalty and to stop the investigation into his friend Michael Flynn. So we do have that source, and if it is true, I agree with the Republicans, including Mr. Amash, who have publicly said, if this Comey memo is real, it is an impeachable offense. That is obstruction of justice. If you or I, or a mayor of Gainesville, or a judge in Gainesville, went to an investigator and said, will you stop this investigation into my friend? And then, after he refused to do so, fired him, you and I would be in jail today.
Okay. I'm going to say that everything all of your comments right now, maybe with a special prosecutor, there'll come some evidence. But right now, everything that you said, we basically do not have any evidence. We have, I mean, Trey Gowdy is a prosecutor himself, former prosecutor. James Comey, under oath, former FBI Director James Comey said, hey, we would get laughed out of court if we took a newspaper article into court as evidence. So right now, the evidence is not there. And I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying is being talked about. It's out there. There's several sources, but evidence is a big word. So if you say that's an impeachable offense, let me just switch gears one time. What we know about the IRS director, was there not impeachable evidence? Would you, if you would impeach Donald Trump, would you have gotten rid of the IRS director of the IRS for? Well,
first you'll have to let me know what crime the IRS director committed. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Okay, but you think there's a crime here? There's a possible crime here.
Obstruction of justice is a crime. We should presume that Donald Trump is innocent until we have seen the evidence. But we should have, impeachment is not conviction. Impeachment is not conviction. But right now, even according to Mr. Trump's own party members who are on the committee asking for their information about his Russian ties, even his own party have said he is stonewalling them and refusing to give them information. So not only did he, from what we know, actively obstruct the pursuit of justice into Mr. Flynn, he has also, according to his own party members, refused to be forthcoming about his Russia ties. So we're not going to get the information from him. It's not an open democratic process. We're going to have to do something much more serious, I believe. We're going to have to commit to finding out just how deep are his connections to Russia. Just this morning, it's hard to keep up with all of this. Every time I wake up and turn on my phone, I know there's going to be something new. We found out this morning that Mr. Trump has at least 18 undisclosed contact with the Russians, and that he and Flynn set up a secret back channel for him to communicate with Putin. Now, of course, once again, this is a source, but even his own party is beginning to turn against him. Everything is falling apart about this administration, and even his own party is realizing that everything he said on his campaign trail was completely hollow, because he is a hollow man.
Well, so you give him no credit for anything. You give him no credit for the reports that illegal immigration crossing the border is down. This is a crisis. So let me ask you a question, okay? So
sure.
To you, you consider this a crisis, a threat on our democracy? I mean, these are not your words, but you consider this that serious?
This is the deepest crisis since perhaps Iran-Contra, maybe even more serious. We are talking about a sitting president who actively used a foreign government to hack into his opponent's records, and also worked in coordination, possibly, with this foreign government to use technology and propaganda to destroy the American citizen's faith in his opponent. This is perhaps the most explosive, most serious, and most possibly treasonous effort by any presidential candidate in history. This is, we'd have to go back to Benedict Arnold to find the last most serious offense against the American Republic.
I have to say this in all due respect, tongue in cheek. You seriously just told me that we have to go? I mean, did you, and I'm going to say this respectfully, did you miss the 8 years of the Obama administration? Did you miss the Hillary Clinton State Department? I mean, you just, I have to say, you just went right over every single thing. Now you're telling me that he colluded with the Russians, and I can't quote exactly what you said, but he colluded with the Russians to hack into his opponent's email or information that caused America to lose faith in his opponent. Now wait a minute.
Don't believe me. Don't believe me.
Oh, but
believe Mr. Trump's own words. Mr. Trump's own words. He called on the Russians. Please give us more information. You've been doing a great job. We need even more. He said it publicly at one of his rallies. And you're missing part of the story. The Russians did not just hack into the Democratic National Committee emails. They also hacked, we know from our own intelligence community, they also hacked into GOP emails. But they only released information from the Democratic server. Why is that? So does that give you? Does that? But why
don't you? Wait. Okay. Let's not for argument's sake. I'm not going to say they did. I'm not going to say Trump's campaign. I don't know that. I mean, you speak kindly like you're confident in these things. I don't know that they hacked into the DNC. Why do you, the DNC was hacked, emails were released. How come nobody ever talks about the actual content in those emails? How come nobody ever talks about how it was discovered that Donna Brazile cheated? Maybe that's a little bit that lost confidence in rural America in Donald Trump's opponent. How come nobody ever talks about the emails that were leaked, that were hacked? We're still trying to determine who. There's a report, and I'm telling you, I don't go down the road. I'm not going down the road of conspiracy, but there's a report that's been on several news cycles that supposedly this DNC staffer, Seth Rich, had email contact with WikiLeaks. Now, we don't know, and I'm not saying that in the affirmative. I'm just saying it's out there. Okay.
Excuse me, though. Let's be real quick. Let's be really clear. That story that you just mentioned has been completely debunked.
No, it is not. No, it is not. No, it is not.
The FBI, the supposed agent who was investigating the Seth Rich story, which appeared all over Fox News, coincidentally, the day after the Comey memo news dropped, that very director has been completely and totally proven false by his own family. Now, listen, I'd like to have a chance to respond to your question. You said that we should pay. Why did nobody talk about Hillary's emails? Let me tell you, I read every one of those emails, which were compromising, which were the reason she lost. I read that. And we can actually count. This is not an opinion, but a number. The news cycle, even the supposedly liberal media, spent more hours talking about Hillary's emails than they did talking about her policy. So I would challenge your assertion that we didn't hear any complaints or any concerns about her emails. And in fact, Gawker, which is known as a liberal site, was influential in releasing those emails in the first place. So the liberal media actually released all this information. I found out everything I knew about those compromising emails from the liberal media. And let me tell you, it actually did change my opinion of Hillary Clinton and made me trust her less. And yet now, this morning, we found out that the House Majority Leader, McCarthy, in 2016, said to his colleagues, I know two people who are on the payroll from Putin, Mr. Trump and Mr. Warbacher. Now, he said that in a taped conversation. And at first, Speaker Ryan's people denied that this happened. And then when they told them they had a tape, they said, oh, actually it did happen, but it was a joke. Listen, Miss Clinton's credibility was justly questioned by all the information that came out on the media. But now that all of this information is coming out, you are telling me that, judging from the tone and tenor of your conversation, that we are supposed to be somehow so skeptical that all this smoke, all these memos, all of the tweets, even from Trump's own phone, we are supposed to think that he is completely clean of any collusion with the Russians. I'll have to tell you, so I don't have those powers of skepticism.
But okay, the assertion. Okay, you told me that you feel that this had a major role in the American people losing faith and trust in Donald Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton. Now, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, though.
Sure.
So, did the Russians have anything to do with Bill Clinton landing in Phoenix and Loretta Lynch landing in Phoenix and Bill Clinton going in that plane? And it is proved by polling data across this country that that really hurt the optic of him going in that plane and the American people not knowing right before former Director FBI Comey came out and made his announcement that he would not be seeking any charges against Hillary Clinton. You don't think, I mean, when you say lost faith in the Russians, I don't think the Russians had anything to do with them planes meeting. And I got a question. I know you have to go, sir. I know you have something at the top of the hour.
I've got time. I would love to respond, and I need some time.
Go ahead.
I cannot figure out why the word Clinton is a magic word for conservatives to completely forget about what's happening right now. Hillary Clinton is not president. I don't care about Hillary Clinton. There are reasons that she lost. Some of them are legitimate, but a presidential election is a very big, complicated thing involving millions of people and billions of dollars. Part of the reason she lost were her own fault. But according to our own intelligence communities, another reason that she lost was because of Donald Trump's campaign connections with the Russians. Now, every time we talk about the current crisis, about a sitting president who may have colluded with the Russians and who fired the FBI director, Hillary Clinton did not fire the FBI director. Barack Obama, who was in power and could have fired him while he was pursuing Hillary Clinton, did not fire him. And yet now, every time we want to talk about Trump's own actions, for some reason, people, especially on the conservative side, feel this compulsion to bring up the magic word, Clinton, and we forget completely about everything that's happening right now. This is what tyrants in other countries do. This is what propaganda and banana republics do. They distract, and they distract from the events that are happening right now. The party of personal responsibility needs to begin taking some responsibility for the child that is sitting in the executive branch Oval Office today.
All right, so you're saying I'm a part of the distraction, and I'm okay with that. I just wonder
why every time we want to start talking about Donald Trump's connections with Russia, you bring up the Clintons. Who are Bill and Hillary Clinton? I've forgotten about them. I've moved on.
Oh, America hasn't forgotten, sir. Trust me, America has not forgotten the Clintons. Now, wait just a minute. Okay, let me take you, because you said a lot there. Let me take one thing. If the collusion, the collusion that the Democrats feel took place, which there's no evidence, there's not even any smoking gun.
And Republicans.
But even in Comey's own testimonies, there has not been any evidence. Every testimony yet, nobody has come up with any evidence of Trump's collusion with the Russians. Now, wait a minute. Let me get this out. The reason I'm going to say let's say we revert back to the Clintons is because all of this election discussion is because Hillary Clinton did not win. Okay, and that's just the bottom line. So it goes back to that. So I, for one, feel when you say, well, America, lost confidence in the candidate, that because of the collusion, you can't help but not go back and say, are you serious that the collusion, the State Department, I for one feel that Comey, I have a question. Did you read Rod Rosenstein's memo? All 3 pages. Did you read all 3 pages?
I did indeed, and it included accusations that Mr. Comey mishandled the situation with Hillary Clinton's emails.
Okay,
right.
But the question was, did you read it? So did you read in there where even former Attorney General Eric Holder, he stated comments from him? Mike Mukasey, did you see all of the comments that have been made concerning the conduct of the office and the way the office is supposed to go through the Department of Justice, and what Comey did on July 5th? I mean, is anybody going to take responsibility on the Democrat side for what Comey did on July 5th, which on July 5th, right before that, Democrats were calling for Comey to be fired by Obama. But in that memo...
And remember, he did not fire him. It's very important to remember that he did not fire him, even though he had the power to do so.
I, for one, I'm going to tell you I think on July 5th, in that memo, if you read all 3 pages, on July 5th, Comey ended his career. That's what I think, regardless who the President of the United States is, because it's supposed to go through the Department of Justice. And even though, sir, we have not seen the Department of Justice, even though Loretta Lynch, former district attorney or attorney general, recused herself, still yet there are avenues that you go through the proper protocol. So when James Comey went on July 5th, it did not even go through the Department of Justice and made a press conference, which is unusual for the FBI. That was totally against the protocol and procedure. So
recusal is a very unfortunate word for you to bring up, because another letter that appeared alongside that letter was from Attorney General Sessions, who, remember, had to recuse himself because he lied under oath about his contact with, guess who? The Russians. So he was also involved in the Comey firing.
Yeah, but he did. Well, but you can't just say that, sir, and say, well, Sessions wrote a letter. I read Sessions' letter, and Sessions' letter is not more than 2 paragraphs. The process is the assistant deputy director writes the memo, makes the recommendations, sends it to him, and it has to come from he did nothing wrong. He just said, look, here is the task. He did
nothing wrong when he lied under oath.
Let's not go under oath, because I know you get busy, because lying under oath. Oh, I know you're very.
Lie under oath.
Well, yes, Hillary Clinton lied under oath.
The magic word.
James Clapper from the Clapper lied under oath about disclosing the information of American citizens and an eavesdropping. Let's not go to lie under oath. Bill Clinton.
You're using the magic word again.
Bill Clinton lied under oath.
Yes, right. There's the magic word.
You're the one that said lied under oath.
Jeff Sessions, who is currently our Attorney General, in charge of enforcing the law, broke the law and recused himself from the Russian investigation, and then re-involved himself in it. I just walked up 2 flights of stairs, so that's why I'm out of breath. I'm not upset with you.
No, I know you're not.
I need to go do my job now.
Okay, I have one last question for you. Go do that job you have today, and I know you do. The 9th Congressional District, every single county in the 9th Congressional District voted for Donald Trump in the primary, not just the general election, supported Donald Trump. The 9th Congressional District in the Republican primary supported President Trump and obviously overwhelmingly supported him in the general election. Do you really think you could take these things that are happening today and turn the district around and see it a different way than supporting Donald Trump and Doug Collins? Do you think you could do that?
Well, I have had my own experience with being fooled by smooth politicians. Barack Obama, who I voted for, fooled me on several occasions. I thought that he was actually going to fix our healthcare system. He made some small improvements, but then handed us over the private insurance companies again. He also said he was going to reform education and do away with some of the standardized testing that everybody hates. And then he doubled down on those. So I know what it's like to vote for a politician who deceived me. And everybody in this district trusted Mr. Trump, and he has betrayed them. his whole life has been a series of betrayals, and I will never blame the voters on either side for deciding who they voted on. Frankly, as I said earlier, Mrs. Clinton, on many occasions, especially the comment to the coal miners, putting them out of business, there were a lot of reasons she lost, which were legitimate. I understand why people voted for him when they did. Frankly, a lot of his message was a New York Democrat message, an old Roosevelt message: invest in infrastructure. He also said he wasn't going to cut a penny from Medicaid. Of course, that was before he favored the bill, the AHCA, which our representative voted for, Mr. Collins. That was before he favored the bill to cut $880 billion from Medicaid. But the most troubling part about this, and this is where it hits home, our representative, Mr. Collins, is supposed to stand up to the executive branch. That's the way our Constitution was designed: checks and balances. And ever since all of these explosive allegations have come out, all of these sources, he has been completely silent. Where is he when the executive branch is out of control? That is my question to Mr. Collins. I would love to hear his response.
Well, you can tomorrow. He'll be on the show tomorrow at 8:15.
Wonderful.
I'm going to be talking about this. You support law enforcement. You support law enforcement. You support anything Jeff Sessions is doing with law enforcement, going after gangs, going after these drug gangs, illegal gangs. You support any of that? How do
I
you
hate gangs.
Okay.
I despise gangs. I live in Gainesville. Let me tell you, a lot of the Latino and Latina parents who live here also despise gangs. I do not support Jeff Sessions personally because he has no character to stand on. But I do, of course, respect law enforcement, and I support them. They need to have our respect and support because they go into very dangerous areas, and they risk their lives every day to protect our communities. On the other hand, they should not have an executive branch officer who clearly only supports law enforcement when they're not investigating him.
Okay. Can I get you to make a commitment to come back to the show?
I would love to come back. Thank you. I want to come back when I have some more time, but I do have to proctor an exam now. I'm standing here holding a stack of exams.
You need to go to work.
And let me tell you, my students cannot wait to get these exams.
I know, and I can't wait to get you back on and say the magic word Clinton. How about that?
Thank you.
You have a nice day.
I wish it had the same effect on me. Thank you.
You have a nice day, Mr. McCall. Thank you very much.
You too. Bye-bye.
I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from the office, North Georgia's only live online morning show, the voice of rural America. Do you have a comment concerning my interview with Mr. McCall, Democrat candidate for 9th Congressional District, opposing Doug Collins? If you do, send it to me, 706-889-9700, 706-889-9700, or email me, chief@fetchernews.com. We're going to talk about 2016 elections, special prosecutors, what you just heard, at fetchernews.com, at fyntv.com, Twitter. Take us a break, Sam. We'll be back right after this.